when SRAM released their groundbreaking wireless eTap group set in 2015, one of the first questions asked was, inevitably, when will the tech be available on their more affordable Force group set? And then, when SRAM released their second generation eTap AXS group set, inevitably, one of the first questions asked was, seriously, when is it coming to Force? Well, the answer is now. More affordable wireless shifting. It has happened, and the biggest news here is that functionally, new Force eTap AXS shares exactly the same DNA as its bigger brother, Red. Before we get on to what does separate the two group sets, we're going to quickly recap the key points of new eTap AXS. And as you can see, SRAM have very kindly sent us a new group set on this rather stealthy new Orbea Orca so that we can show you. Number one, and still the big news, there are no cables and no wires. It is wireless. Shifters communicate with the derailleurs via SRAM's own protocol, and both shifters and derailleurs also feature the same hardware and software as new Red AXS as well, meaning that they react just as quickly, they move just as fast, and they're also compatible. Now, as you can see, the group set has also been redesigned around this new flat top chain with its larger rollers and narrower side plates, which also means that the profiles of the cassette teeth and chainring teeth have also been changed as well. Now, the aim with this, SRAM say, was to improve the shifting, make it even quieter, further improve the durability, as well as allowing for 12 sprockets at the back. That's right, you have 12 cogs at the back. It shares the same X-range gear ratios as Red. Now, this is in essence where SRAM have made the chainring slightly smaller up front, as well as keeping the gap between big ring and little ring consistent to 13 teeth, no matter which chainring options you choose. Now, that has allowed them then to fine-tune the functionality of the front derailleur. The range of your gears are then handled by the cassette, where you have a smaller 10-tooth sprocket instead of an 11, which actually gives you a higher top gear than you would otherwise be used to, as well as reducing the gaps between the sprockets at the back. The rear derailleur also has the same Orbit fluid-damped chain management system. So when shifting, the derailleur arm is free to move forwards and backwards, so you get the same smooth and easy shift that you'd be used to. But when the derailleur arm is forced to move quickly, i.e. when you're riding over bumpy ground, that damper then adds resistance, meaning that you don't get any chain slap and your chain stays in place if you're running a single ring 1x setup up front. You can also connect it up to the new AXS smartphone app, which, among other things, allows you to customize the functionality of the group set. So, for example, you could change which button activates which shift, or turn on sequential shifting, which is where you can just forget about the front derailleur, or turn on semi-sequential, which is where every time you choose to shift at the front derailleur, you get smaller compensation shifts at the cassette to lessen the jump. The similarities between Red and Force go on and on, like the lever ergonomics and the braking performance, all meaning that in use the two feel really similar. But there must be differences in order for Force to retail for $1,000 less, right? Well, yeah. Essentially though, it boils down to materials and manufacturing processes, meaning that Force is more affordable and also slightly heavier. Slightly. So the disc version 2x, like this one, is 365 grams heavier, and the like-for-like rim brake version is 347 grams heavier.
Now in total, in spite of those extra grams, the disc brake group set still weighs only 2,883 grams without a power meter, and the rim brake version 2,448 grams.
And interestingly, the bulk of those weight differences are actually concentrated in one component, the chain set. And grams aside, it actually probably presents the biggest departure between these two group sets. A Force 2x chain set like this one is 183 grams heavier than the equivalent red one. Now, none of that additional weight is down to anything like bottom bracket standards. This also shares the new dub standard that with the right bottom bracket will fit into just about any frame set imaginable. Instead, the differences are firstly down to the construction technique. This, as you can see, is made out of carbon fibre, but the red one is made out of a hollow carbon construction that SRAM call exogram. And then secondly, it comes down to the chain rings themselves. Now, one of the big talking points on the red group set was the fact that both rings are machined from the same piece of aluminium and then bolted directly onto the crank arm. The idea is that they're stiffer and they're lighter, but they are also therefore more expensive if you ever need to replace them. These Force ones though are a standard 2 chainring construction bolted on to a removable spider. It does mean that in line with it being a more affordable group set, should you ever need to replace one, it won't be quite as expensive. Now, if what SRAM say about the durability is true, i.e. that the chain rings will last for upwards of 7 years of heavy use, then it could well be quite a while before you ever need to think about replacing one anyway, but it is good to know. Now you can see as well that there is a Quark power meter option available on Force as well. This is a more traditional spider mounted power meter, so the kind that we've been used to. Sticking with the chain set, one last difference, and I did tell you there were a few, is that there's no 50-37 chainring combo on Force, whereas there is at red, nor is there a single ring 50-tooth option. And while interesting, it's perhaps not wholly unsurprising, given that 50-37 is like the big gear ratios, that's like the racer's choice. Now, if we move backwards to the cassette, it too, remember, shares the same space as an 11 sprocket cassette, and indeed also fits, of course, onto the XDR driver, which is like a redesigned free hub body to allow you to fit that smaller 10 tooth on there. But the difference is in the cassette itself. So whereas red is machined from one piece, Force is not. And that adds about 50 grams in weight, but doesn't change the functionality. And one last thing that might be of interest is up on the shifters. So they've only got one blip port per side as opposed to 2. Now those are the bits that allow you to plug in remote shifters. You can see I've got 2 on the tops here that allow me to shift from a different position. Now, one of the things that previous generation mechanical Force became known for was by being pretty much the go-to group set for gravel riding and cyclocross when in its single chainring 1x setup. I mean, it is absolutely everywhere. And while there is no updated mechanical version of Force on the horizon, that 1x option is still going to be available. But whereas that has a 10-42 11-speed cassette option, the new Force eTap AXS, the largest cassette, only goes up to a 33 tooth. And also that rear derailleur, just like with red, only goes up to a maximum capacity of 33 as well. It is, of course, as we've been talking about, designed to be run 1x. I mean, there are stacks of different single chainring options up front, for example. But I would guess that a lot of people that might have been running 1x would now be tempted to go back to 2x, given that you still have the same equivalent easy gear, so 1-to-1 gear ratio, but you'd get a much higher top gear, so 1046, for example, as opposed to, I don't know, 1040 or 1042. You also get much smaller jumps on the cassette at the back, as well as benefiting from that quiet ride because you still have the chain management system on there. Now, personally, for cyclocross, I'd probably still go with 1x, maybe a 40-tooth chainring up front with a 10-33 cassette at the back. But for gravel riding, I think I'd probably go 2x, given that fast tarmac is of course part of the remit of a gravel bike, so having that higher top gear would probably come in handy. The front derailleur allows you to fit tyres up to 40mm wide, potentially even more depending on the design of the frame set, and of course that quiet ride from the chain management system. Now, if you did really want a monster 1x setup with huge gear ratios, you can take advantage of the compatibility with SRAM's new eTap AXS mountain bike group set, which has a 10-50 cassette at the back, which, interestingly, for the nerds out there, is actually the same as the 10-42 11-speed Force cassette, but the 12th sprocket is, of course, that gigantic 50 tooth. You would, of course, need to run an Eagle rear derailleur plus chain, and then either a road or mountain bike up front. But you would then get an absolute monster setup for epic, well, I don't know what, frankly. So that is Force eTap AXS, the group set we've all patiently been waiting for. All the functionality, less expensive, a little bit more weight. Now, for many of us, I would expect that weight difference isn't going to matter a jot. The fact that the functionality is the same is the key point. For others, I would guess the fact that there is a no expenses spared approach to that top tier red is going to win you over. Either way, it's certainly an amazing example of trickle-down technology. As we film this, the price for the 2x rim brake version is $2,468. The disc brake version is just $200 more at $2,648. Now, of course, if you want a 1x version, that is slightly less expensive, given that there is no front derailleur and only half the number of chain rings. Do make sure you let us know in the comment section what you think about this. Give the video a big thumbs up if you like it. And if you've got any questions, stick them in the comment section as well. We will do our best to answer them. If you would like a little bit more information about the X-Range gear ratios, we have a video on that. You can get through to it by clicking on screen now.